Om Shri Manjunathaya Namaha. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's session on Sushruta Samhita Adhyayana. Without further delay, I would like to call upon Dr. Muridhar Sharma sir, STMC AOP, to take over the session. Welcome to you, sir.
Okay, thank you. The next chapter is Vamanadravya Vikalpavijnaniyam Adhyayam Vyakhyasyaमः. वमनद्रव्याणां फलादीनां मदनफलानि श्रेष्ठतमानि भवन्ति अथ मदनपुष्पाणाम् आतपपरिशुष्काणां चूर्णप्रकुञ्चं प्रत्यक्पुष्प सदापुष्प निम्ब कषायाणाम् अन्यतमेन आलोट्य मधुसैन्धवयुक्तां पुष्पचूर्णमात्रां पायित्वा वामयेत्. Now, Madanaphala is one of the most important drugs for the Vamana. There are many sorts of presentations of the Madana as Sushruta starts with the Madana Pushpa Yoga. The first is the Pushpa Yoga, where the flowers of the Madana fruit are dried, and then one prakunja of the Madana Pushpa Phalachurna, along with the Sada Pushpa, Pratek Pushpa, and Nimba Kashaya. These are mixed together, and Madhu and Saindam is added, and this is given for Vamana. This is what Sushruta says. Of course, in Charaka Samhita also you will have similar yogas, Pushpa Yoga, Phala Yoga, and so on. But practically, most of the times, what we do is we give Madana Bija Churna, Madana Phala Bija Churna, which is practically done. Pushpa Yoga is virtually not done yet. I don't know about that, but within our limits, we don't do that Pushpa Yoga quite regularly. मदन शलाट चूर्णानि एवं च बकुलरस बकुल रम्यक उपयुक्तानि मधुलवणयुक्तानि अभिप्रतप्तानि मदन शलाट चूर्ण सिद्धां वा तिलतण्डुलयवागुम्. Shalatu is a very unripe fruit, that bija, or the unripe fruit of that, and its also churna can be given with the bakula and ramyaka with the mathu and lavana for the woman. निवृत्तानां च नातिहरितपाण्डूनां कुश मूढ अवबद्धं उद्ग गोमय प्रलिप्तानां यव तुष मुद्ग माश शाल्यादि धान्य राशौ अष्टरात्र उषित क्लिन्न भिन्नानां फलानां फलपिप्पलीः उद्धृत्य आतपे शोषयेत्. Now the other way, which is now popularly done, is the seeds of the Madanaphala, and the seeds of the Madanaphala are extracted after a ripened fruit is kept in a heap of grains. It could be green gram or black gram or rice, and for about 8 days it's allowed to dry, and then once it ruptures, the seeds are collected, and these seeds are also named as Phalapipali, and this would be given with the tasam dadi madhu palala vimratita parishushkanam subhajanasthanam antarnakha muste यष्टि मधुक कषाय गोविदारादिनां अन्यतमे वा कषाय प्रमृद्य रात्रि परिवेशितं मधुसैन्धवयुक्तम् आशीभिः अभिमन्त्रितम् उदङ्मुखः प्राङ्मुखम् आतुरं पायेत अनेन मन्त्रेण अभिमन्त्र्य. Now the Phalapipali, these are added to the dadhi, that's the curds, and then kept overnight so that it becomes fermented, like, and then one musti of that phala is given with the after consumption of the kashaya of madhu yasti, the madhu saindava, so on, and then woman is given. Brahma Dakshashi Rudrendra Bhu Chandraka Anilaha Rishaya Saushidhi Grama Bhuta Sangascha Pante Rasayanam Iva Rishinam Devanam Abhutameta Sudheva Uttamanagalam Vaishadyam Idamastude. This is a mantra which is suggested when the woman is given. But the protocol of Vamana is more standardized in Ashtanga. Now in Sushruta, of course, you have all that details, but there are certain of the issues which are not explained very clearly. Whereas in Vagbhata and even Charaka also, it has a similar issue. The things are detailed, but they are scattered, they are not put together. Ashtanga, you will get all that protocols of preparation with a very brief and very standardized manner. Now in the Vagbhata, what is mentioned is asa sadharane kale snigdhastvinam yatha vidhi. Now that necessity of snehana and the swedana is very clearly mentioned in Vagbhata. Whereas of course it's in Charaka Sushruta also that protocol is mentioned, but it's not mentioned as a standard protocol of the woman or the villager. Now Shvamyam Utklishta Kapam Matsya Masha Tiladibhi Nisham Suttam Sujirnanam Purvanya Kritamangalam Now, after the Snehana and the Svedana, the Kapha Utklesha has to be done, and the Kapha Utklesha is done with the some Kleda Karaka Ahara. It could be Matsya, Masha, Tila, etc. Or now what we do is give some sweets, oil prepared sweets. Then in the early morning, after the previous food is digested, Vamana is given in empty stomach. And of course, the Mangala Vidhi has to be done. Nirannam, it should be in a Nirana condition. Ishat Siddham va Peya Pita Sarpisham. So before the Vamanadravya is given, patient is given some Snigdha Dravya, and either it could be Ghrita itself or it could be with the Kashayas as such. Now, usually the patient, before that, the patient is given some other liquid which will stimulate the vomiting. And the better is what Vagbhata suggests is better is Vruddha Bala Abala Kliba Bhirum Rogam Rodadaha Akantam Payet Madhyam Kshiram Ikshurasam Rasam Yatha Vikara Vetam Madhu Sendava Sayutam. Now, it's better to give some liquids before the Vamal Dravya is given, and it has to be given to their capacity, to the full capacity, and the liquid which could be given could be either Kshira, Ikshurasa, or it could be Madhya, or it could be a preparation according to the doshas. Now, most of the times, which is easily given and easily accepted, is the Madhyastic Vata or Kshira. This is what we generally do. Madhyastic Vata or Kshira is most commonly used before the Vamana. Then, Kostam Vibhajya, Bhaishajya Matram Mantrabhimantritam. The Vaishajya Matra, the quantity of the drug should be according to the Kosta. We will come to that, like how to decide that part is mentioned. And then, of course, the same mantra is mentioned. Brahmadaksha Shudraendra Bhuchandra Anila Analaha Rishaya Saushri Grama Bhutasangascha Pantu Vaha Rasayanam Iva Rishinam Amaranam Iva Amritam Sudheva Uttamanaganam Vaishadyam Idanastute. Now, in addition to that, Vagbhata has added one more sloka to that mantra about the Buddha. Om Namo Bhagavate Bhaishya Gurave Vaidurya Praharajaya Tathagataya Arhate Samyak Sambuddhaya Tatha Om Vaishya Mahabhaishya Samudate Swaha. That mantra, whether it is really needed or not, that's the other way. Now, Bhito Muhurtam Manapala Manaha. So, after the Vamana Dravya is given, you will have to wait for one Muhurta Kala. That's about up to about 40 minutes, 42 or 45 minutes. Within that time, the patient would have the Jata Hrlasa Prasekachade, the patient would have started vomiting. If he doesn't vomit, then the vomiting should be stimulated by touching the palate with the Angulibhyam Anayasaha. Tatho Nalena or Muduna Athava, with some soft stem of a plant, or with the fingers, you have to stimulate the palate and induce the act of vomiting if the person doesn't start vomiting within Muhutakala. Galatalu Arujan Vegan Apravurtan Pravartayan Pravartayan Pravurtamscha Janatulya Asane Sthitaha Ubhe Parshve Lalatamcha Vamatashtasya Dharayet Prapirayet Tata Nabhim Pustamcha Pratilomataha. Now, when the person is vomiting, you have to support the head, and patient has to sit in a knee height seat and then bend forwards, and during that vomiting the head and neck has to be supported, abdomen has to be compressed in the opposite direction. Visheshena, now the indications for Vamana mentioned in Sushruta is Visheshena, Shleshma Jwara Pratishaya Antarvidradhishu Apravartamane va doshe Pippali Vacha Gaurava Sarshapa Kalkol Mishrehi Salavanihi Ustambihi Puna Puna Pravarteda Asamya Bhantarakshana Idi. Now Sushruta says, like the Vamana Dravya has to be given with the Tikshna Dravyas or Katurasa Dravyas, like Pipali, Vacha, Gaurav, Sarshapa, etc., the Ushna Dravya, in Kapajajvara or Pratishaya, Antarvidrati, etc., are in those conditions where the patient may not vomit out by giving the usual, the first set of the drug. In that condition, a Tikshna Dravya has to be given with the Salavanihi Ustambubihi, with the salt and the warm water, Puna Pravarteta, Asamya Bhantarakshanathi. Now, indications for the Vamana in conditions are very specifically pinpointed in Ashtanga. Of course, there is. I don't say that Sushruta or Charaka have not mentioned it. They have mentioned all these issues, but the details are very accumulated and organized, presented in a very compact manner in Ashtanga. So now, and hence, when we read about Vamanadravya, usually Ashtanga references are usually quoted very frequently. नमज्वर अतिसार अध पित्ताश्रित राजयक्ष्मिनः कुष्ठमेह अपचि ग्रंथि श्लीपद उन्मादकासिनः श्वास हृल्लासपि सर्प स्तन्य दोषोर्थरोगिणः. The indications of women are Namajvara, Atisara, Raktapitta, that too Adhoga Raktapitta, then Rajayakshma, Kushta, Meha, Apati, Granthi, Shlipada, Unmada, Kasa, Shwasa, Hrilasa, Bisarpa, Stanya Dosha. These are the indications. Avamyaha, those indications that women should not be done, or contraindications for women are Garbhini, Rukshaha, Kshudito, Nityadukshitaha, person who has a continuous persistent disease, multiple disorders, or patient who is emaciated and Garbhini, pregnant. Bala, Vruddha, Krisha, Sthula, Hridogi, Kshatadurpadaha, patients who are very weak or very young aged or very old aged persons, and those with the cardiac disease. Practically, now when we do the Vamana, we generally have a protocol of having a ECG to rule out latent ischemic changes. Ischemic changes, I don't say that every patient of ischemia is a high risk for Vamana, but it's always a bit risk with the ischemic changes. So, to be on the safer side, patients who have an established ischemic heart disease, better not to give one woman. Hridogi Kshatadurpadaha, Prasakta Vamatu, Pliha Timira Krimikoshtinah, patient who has already an induction of vomiting, patient who is already having the vomiting, it's better not to give a Vamana, except, of course, the exceptions we will have that later on. Urdhva Pravurta Vayu, those who have already a disease where the movement of the vata is upwards, where the patient would have more of flatulence, more of irritations, or frequent vomiting, then our Raktapitta, Urdhvaga Raktapitta, Dattabasti, after the basti, immediately after the basti, women should not be given. Hataswaraha, who have a abnormality of the voice. Mutraghati, with the Mutraghata, Budara, Gulma, and Atyagnihi, persons with a very severe Agni, and Arshas, even Arshas also is a contraindication for women according to Bhagbata. Udavarta, Brahma, Astila, and then Pashwaruku, Vataroginaha. In many of the Vataroga, Bhavana is contraindicated according to Bhagbata. Rute, Vishadara, Ajirna, Viruddha, Abhyavaharataha, Prasakta Vamatoho. Now, Prasakta Vamatu, those who have an vomiting already, the Vamana is generally not indicated. Exception to that would be when the patient has a Prasakta Vamatu or already has been vomiting, induced due to Visha, Gara, Ajirna, Viruddhahara. If the vomiting is induced due to a poisonous substances or contaminated food substances, or the patient has indigestion and hence vomiting, a short duration of vomiting, or patient has taken Viruddhahara and hence vomiting has started, in these conditions, Vamana can be given or Vamana can be induced. In all other conditions where the person has a spontaneous vomiting, Vamana is contraindicated. Purve Prayana Amadjuropita. Now, in the Amadjvara, now there you have a bit of controversy. Sushruta has said that in the initial stages of Jvara, the woman is indicated. Bhagbata specifies in Prayana Amadjvara, in majority of the Amadjvara, it's better not to give the Vamana. And of course, it's practically true. Like in the early stages of the Jvara, better not to give the Vamana. Dhumantehi karmabhivarjyaha, after the Dhumapana or any other Shodhana, immediately after the Shodhana, Vamana is contraindicated. Sarve Yureva Ajirninaha, those who have the Ajirna, Vamana should not be given. Now, there are some presentations or method of administration of the drug could be of different varieties, and these varieties are mentioned in Sushruta in terms of the Madanapala yogas. In Charaka, you have 133 Madanapala yogas mentioned. Details also are mentioned in the Kalpasthana. Now, in Sushruta, in the Sutrasthana, you get these minor details. More details you will see in the Kalpasthana later on. Madanapala Madhyachurnam or Tatkata Paribhavitam Madanapala Kashayana. Either it could be Madanapala Madhyachurna with its own Pata and Madanapala Kashaya. or Madanaphala Madhyasiddhasya Payasa Santanikam Shadrayukta Madanaphala Madhyasiddham Vapayah, or a Madanaphala Madhya has to be added to milk, and then the cream of that milk with the Kshaudra could be given, with the honey could be given, or Madanaphala Madhyasiddham Vapayah, the milk with the Madanaphala also can be given. Madanaphala Madhyasiddhenam Payasa Yavagu, or that Madanaphala Madhyasiddha milk with the Yavagu. Adhobhaga asatpitta hriddahayoho. Now these are specifically indicated in adhogaraktapitta hriddaha pittaja vyadhi. Madanaphala with the milk and milk products are given. Madhyaphala siddhasya vapayaso dadi bhavam upagatasya dantitvaram dadiva kaphapraseka chhardi murcha tamakeshu. In the kapaja vyadhi, say Madanaphala Madhya has to be added to the milk and it is allowed to ferment. It becomes a curd like, and that the either the surface that maybe solidified portions of that curd or directly the dadi can be given in kapaja vyadhi like kapha praseka chati murcha tamakesho. मदनफल मज्जारसं स्नेहं वा भल्लातक स्नेहमुत आदाय फाणितीभूतं देहेत आतपपरिशुष्कं वा तमेव जीवन्ति कषायेण पित्ते कफस्थानगते. In कफस्थानगत पित्त व्याधि, the Madanaphala Majja with the sneha, the oil has to be extracted by heating it over a heater, heated pan, and oil is extracted. That's the method of extraction of the Balataka Sneha. So similarly, oil is extracted and that oil is converted into a leha by solidifying it. The or Atapushkama Tamema Jivanti Kashayan, or the same has to be dried up and along with the Jivanti Kashaya in Pitta Kapasthanagate Pitte, in the Kapasthanagata Pitta Vyadi, where the patient would have more of gastritis like symptoms. Madanaphala Madhyapathamma Pippatya Prativapam Taturnamma Nimba Rupika Kashayoho Anyatarena Santarpana Kapaja Vyadhyaram. In the Santarpana Kapaja Vyadhi, Madanaphala Madhyapata with the Pippaladi Prativapa, Pippaladi is added, or the churna are added, Vekadigana churna are added, or Nimba Rupika Kashayoho, or Nimba Kashaya also can be added. That's the Kafagna Dravyas are added. Madanaphala Madhyachurnam Madhuka Kashmir Draksha Kashayana Madanaphala Vidhanam Bhuktam. With the Madhura Dravya is used for Bhataya Vyadhi. Jimutaka Kusumachurnam Purudeva Kshirena, Nirteshu Kshirevagum, Romasheshu Santanikam, Aromasheshu Dadhyuttaram. Now, Jimutaka Kusuma also, the flowers of the Jimutaka plant also can be used in the similar manner as that of Madanaphala. And if the flowers are dry, then with Kshira Yavagu, if the flowers still have that hairy portions, then the Santanika, that cream has to be prepared. Aromasheshu, if the hairs are removed, then the Juttaram, the wave water of the dadi prepared as it. Harita Pandashu dadi, if there is a greenish flower, the Jimotaka flower, then it should be prepared in the form of dadi. Tat kashaya samsisam was suram, or it could be along with the alcohol preparation, and the kashaya can be added. So kapha arotika kasa shwasa pandaroga ikshmasu paryagateshu madanaphala madhyavat upayogah. The Jimutaka Kusuma can be, flowers can be used in Kapaja Vyadhi mainly, or Tadadeva Kutapala Vidhanam, Kritavedanam Api Evakalpaha, Ikshaku Kusuma Churnama Purvat Evam Kshirena, Kasa Shwasa Chardi Kaparogeshu Pektaha. In Kapaja Vyadhi, you have the other alternative choices like Kutapala, Kritavedana, Ikshaku also. धामार्गवस्यापि मदनफलमज्जावत् उपयोगः विशेषतस्तु गर गुल्म उदर कासश्वास श्लेष्म आमयेषु वायु वा कफस्थानगते. Dhamargava also can be used as Madanaphala in Gara Gulma, Udara, Kasa, Shwasa, Kapaja Vyadhi, etc. Kritavedana Phala Pippadinam Vamanadravya Kashaya Paripitanam Bhavshah Churnam Utpaladishu Dattam Aghrakam Vamayati. Now there is a Agrana Vamaka Dravya, that's Kritavedana Phala Pippali Churnam. These are to be smelled, and that by the smell of that itself, the person would start vomiting. Tattu Anavabadha Dosheshu. But that agrana is mainly in those conditions where the doshas are not very stable and they can be easily omitted out. Yavagum Akanta Pitavat Sujaviladhyata, after the Akantapana of the Yavagu. वमन विरेचन शिरोविरेचन द्रव्याणि एवं वा प्रधानतमानि भवन्ति. So selection of the drug would be according to the vyadhi. Now that's a very important issue. The drugs have to be selected according to the dosha condition to give the vamana, which we generally don't do. In most of the times when it's practically done, most of the times in every center you will have one specific Vamanadravya yoga, and that Vamanadravya yoga is given for all the variety of conditions. A specified Vamanadravya yoga, of course, is done occasionally. I don't say that it's never done, but practically it becomes very difficult, and hence, what I have observed is the clinical effects are not very significantly different when we use some specific yoga or a common Madana yoga. It could be almost a similar issue. The differences are not very significant. Now, the same is mentioned, like the Vamanadravya Yoganam Digiyam Samprakirtita Kan Vibhajya Yatha Vyadi Kala Shakti Vinishchayata. The drugs have to be selected according to the disease, as well as the season, as well as the strength of the patient, as well as the strength of the disease. Kashayaihi, Swarasaihi, Kalkehi, Churnairapi च बुद्धिमान पेय लेह्यादिबोध्येषु Vamanani Upakalpayata. It could be in any form like Peya, Leha, or with the food. Now, the same is mentioned in Vagbhata in a very summarized manner. Kafe, Tishtosna Katakehi, Pitte Swadhibiriti, Vamek Snitham Lavanehi, Sansaste Maruta Kafe. In case of Kevala Kapajabyadi, Tishna Usna Katudravya are to be selected. In Pitta, Madhura or Shita Dravya has to be selected. And in Maruta Kafe, Vata and Kapha conditions, Vata Yukta Kapha conditions, Snigdha Amla Lavana has to be given. Now, Bhagavata adds some more specifications for the Vamana. That protocol of the Vamana is, as I said, more detailed in Bhagavata, and hence when we discuss about Vamana, that reference of Bhagavata is quite important. Now, how far the Vamana has to be given? Kiyantam kalam umetityaha. Pittasya darshanam yavat chedo va shleshmanam bhavet. The Vamana has to be continued till the Pittanta, the Pitta should be seen, or the Kapha is removed completely. Here, if at all the yoga Vedas are not coming, if the person is not vomiting properly and it's not resulting in the Samyak Vega Rakshana, then Hina Vegaha, Kada Dhatri Siddhartha Raunodakaihi, Omet Puna Punaha. If the Vegas are not sufficient, the frequency of vomiting is not sufficient, then Pippali, Dhatri, and Siddhartha Ravana can be added, or a Kashaya with that can be given again, and the patient may be induced vomiting. तत्र वेगानाम् अप्रवर्तनं प्रवृत्तिः सौभ्यन्दा वा केवलस्य औषधस्य वा अयोगस्तेन निश्चैव कण्डुकोठज्वरादयः. How to confirm that the patient is requiring that supportive or that extra protocol is if the patient doesn't have the Vega at all by one Muhurta Kala, or if the patient starts vomiting but it's not freely vomited out, the vomiting is not free, or if the person has vomited only the medicine but not the contents of the abdomen, that can be considered as ayoga, or the ayoga also can be considered by the clinical symptoms of nishchiva, kandu, kotha, jvaradaya. If the patient would have more of salivation only, or patient has a itching or eruptions over the body, allergic reactions, hypersensitivity reactions occur, or jvara. In that condition, it can be considered as a ayoga, and in that ayoga, you have to give that supportive extra treatment to induce the vomiting again. Niribandham pravartante kapapittanilah kramaat manaprasadaha swastham cha avasthanam cha swayam bhavet. Now, a samyak Vamanadrakshana is when the vomitus contains initially the food and then kapha, pitta, vata in the sequence, and at the end the patient will have a pleasant feeling and health is better, and the vomiting stops by itself. The urges of vomiting stop by itself. That's considered as the Samayoga or the Samyak Vamanadrakshana. Vaiparityam ayoganam cha ati mahati vyatha samyak yoge. Now, there will be no features of the ati yoga. Ati yoge to fena chandraka raktavat. the patient would have more foamy, and then there will be multiple color, or maybe the blood stained vomitum, kshamata. Patient would have a very severe weakness, daha, burning sensation, kantashoshaha, burning dryness of the throat, tamo bhramaha, impaired consciousness, ghoraha, vaimamayaha, severe vataja vyadhi like pain in the body, joint, etc. Mrityu, even death can occur. Jiva Shodita Nirgamata. Vamana Atiyoga can produce these complications. Samyak Yogain Omitam Kshanam Ashwasya Payeta Dhumatrayasya Nitam Sneha Charam Athadisheta. After the Vamana, a Dhumapana is indicated to reduce all the possible discharges accumulated in the tract. And Dhumapana is to clear the respiratory tract is done. So after the Samyogog Lakshana has occurred, you have to ensure that the patient is comfortable. Then the Dhumapana has given usually three these breaths or three intakes of the Dhumapana is indicated. Following that, the patient has to follow the Snehachara. Snehachara in the sense the protocol of Samsarjana Krama. ततः सायं प्रभाते वा क्षुद्वान् स्नातः सुखाङ्गुना भुञ्जानो रक्तशाल्यनं भजेत् पेयादिकं क्रमात्. After that, the evening or in the later part of the day, he has to take bath, and only when the patient has a urge for food, he has to prepare peya manda vilepi, the krama, that samsarjana krama has to be followed with the raktashali rice as such. Tameva peyadikam kramam aha. How to that peyadi krama is peyam vilepim akritam krutam cha yusham rasam tri mubhem tathikam क्रमेण सेवेत नरो अन्नकालान प्रधान मध्यावर शुद्धि शुद्धः. Now the patient has to take peya, vilepi, akritayusha, kritayusha, and these were 3 food times. Annakala is 3 food times. 3 food times in the sense, usually as per our ancient protocol, person has to take twice in the day. The 2 food annakalas are per day, whereas now the standard is 3 annakalas. But most of the times you may take more than 10 times every hour. You may go to canteen and then take. So annakala has to be assessed based upon the lifestyle. But now what we see is practically we consider a 3 annakala per day as standard in the present day situation. That 2 annakala per day is in ancient times. Practically we will have to consider that. So for one day he has to take peya. Peya is only the liquid component of the gruel. Bilepi is where the thickened liquid component. Akritayusha where the ganji without any additions. Kritayusha is ganji with the additions of the spices could be, and these have to be taken for each day. It can be enhanced and gradually it has to be increased, and this frequency can be even varied according to the type of the shuddhi. If there is a prabhuta shodhana, then the time frequency has to be increased. The time taken for the samsarjana has to be longer, and if it is a relatively lesser yoga or this avara yoga, then the duration can be reduced. But for usually what we do is we follow a general protocol of that ganjitili or peya for 2 days, and the vilepi for another 2 days, and Kritayusha for 2 days. By end of 1 week, the patient will have a normal diet. This is the standard protocol of the Samsarjana Krama which we generally follow. But of course, it can be varied according to the status of the patient. Yatha Anu, but it's a very important, very crucial part of any of the Shodhana is a Samsarjana Krama. Samsarjana Krama, if it is not followed, both women or Vilechana can be quite dangerous. यथा अणुः अग्निः तृणगोमयाद्यैः संदुक्ष्यमाणो भवति क्रमेण महान् स्थिरः सर्वप्रतस्तैव शुद्धस्य पेयादिभिः अन्तरग्निः. This antaragni can be protected, or that samsarjana krama is very necessary, because during the vamana or virechana, the agni would be affected, and that agni has to be gradually enhanced, and only when it is gradually enhanced with that peyadi krama, the agni will become stabilized and the person would have a proper health as such. And hence, this is should not be compromised, and which often is done. Many times people would compromise with this samsadhana karma, particularly in the present days duration of a demand for instant shodhana, instant panchadana, where people do woman one day, Velachana another day, and so on. But that's not really good, and it can be quite harmful. जगन्य मध्य प्रवरेतु वेगाः चत्वार इष्टाः वमने षडस्थौ दशैव च द्वित्रिगुणः विरेके प्रस्तस्तदा स्याद् द्विचतुर्गुणश्च. Now, how to consider the Vedas are proper or not? Vagbhata gives that number. Chatvara, 4 yoga, or 6 or 8. 4 is the Jaganya Vega, or the 6 is moderate or Madhya, 8 is Pravara. Dashaiva te Vitrigunaha Vireke. In case of the Virechana, it could be 10, 20, 30, or it could be with the prasta, the measures. See, there is a Shuddhi of Antiki Shuddhi, Maniki Shuddhi, Vaigiki Shuddhi. Vaigiki Shuddhi is a number of Vegas by which you can decide whether the Shuddhi Lakshana has occurred or not. Antika Shuddhi is when the end result, like a Pittanta in case of Vamana and the Kapanta in case of Virechana, so on, are the quantity, prastaha, the total quantity of the substance is omitted, be Chaturgurashta, that's uh, double or 4 times that of the substance given. Pittavasanam omanam vileka ardham kapantam te vilekamahumu. Ditran sabitkan apaniya began meam vileke vamanetu pitam. Now, the same anti-Shuddhi is Pittavasanam omanam vileka ardham. The total quantity of the should be half of the vilechana. Kapantam te vilekamahu. Now, when you count the Vegas, there is a protocol. The counting of the Vegas should be Vitran Sabitkan Apaniya Yoga Vegan Mayam Vireke Vamaneka Pitam. The first 2 or 3 Vegas where the feces are expelled out in case of the Virechana, or in case of Vamana, the first 1 or 2 Vegas where the given drug is omitted out until the body contents do not come out, they should not be counted. So you'll have to start counting after these the externally administered substances are removed or the feces is expelled out. अतएनं वामितं भूयः स्नेहस्वेदोपपादितं श्लेष्मकाले गते ज्ञात्वा कोष्ठं सम्यक् विरेचयेत. If at all the person after Vamana has to be given Virechana, there should be a gap, and that gap should be, you will have to wait till that couple lakshanas are given. So usually we wait for 1 paksha or 15 days before the gap of Vamanadha Virechana. So giving instant Vamanadha Virechana is not ideal. अपक्व ममनं दोषान् पच्यमानं विरेचनं निष्क्रियवमनस्यातः पाकं न प्रतिपादयेत. So in case of vamana, the vamana dravya is not supposed to be digested. So it has to be produced to apakva form. It induces the effect in the apakva form before the paka has occurred. Whereas Virechana would be producing the Pachyamana during the stage of digestion, the Virechana Dravya will be producing the same effect. And hence, you have to ensure that the Vamana Dravya should not be expelled or should not be allowed to be kept in the body till it gets digested. That's about 3 to 4 hours. Should not be kept in the body for 3 to 4 hours. Virechana, it should be there for at least 3 hours before the Virechana just start. It should not produce the Virechana before that. So that's a standard protocol. And Pakam na Pratipalayata, this protocol also has to follow. With this, इति सुश्रुतसंहितायां सूत्रस्थाने ओमनद्रव्यविकल्पविज्ञानीय अध्याय नाम 43 अध्यायः 43rd chapter is over, I think. Though there is a time left to start with the new chapter, it will be too not very proper. So we will wind up today. If there are any questions, there are some questions like Vamana Nabhi Pidana in opposite direction means in which direction? It's downwards. Downwards in the sense to reduce the possibility of excess of vomiting. This is what is mentioned, like the meaning of that. Of course, whether that external massage would produce a change in the total vomiting urge, questionable, but it gives some support, some comfort to the patient. Then in Vamana and Virechana context, it is apakwa dosha or apakwa dravya. Now, the doshas are always after the dosha paka only the shodhana has to be done, not the apakwa dosha. Dravya, of course, in case of Vamana, it is the apakwa dravya. In case of the Virechana, it's the uh, uh, of course, the Paka or Pachama. Of course, it is true that Sharanga says it is Apaka dosha, but the whole protocol of Yoman and Virechana, where you give initially that the Utklesha, now it's a Utkrishta dosha rather, whether it's to consider as Pakwa or Apakwa, it's always the Utkrishta dosha. The protocol of Snehana then is to produce the dosha Utklesha, where the doshas are to be brought from the Shakha to the Kosta, and that protocol of bringing the doshas from the Shakha to the Kosta is also a Paka, is a sort of Paka, and hence to say that it's Apako dosha which is expelled out is not practically correct. Of course, only in case of Pravutta dosha, those who have already this earth or naturally there is a expulsion, in that condition there is no question of that protocol, and in that condition it may be considered as a apakodosha. So that controversy is not a major issue. Of course, it is true that Sharda says that it is a apakodosha. Right. If there are any question, any more, okay. Right. Right. Then we'll wind up.